Our first question will go to Brenda. Why should a voter whose #1 issue is climate change vote for you instead of your opponent?
The reason I'm running for mayor is because I live on Hospital Hill and there's overdevelopment is a problem. There's open space in Quincy that I think is subjected to possible development in the future. I'm a big fan of seaways, you know, beach, ocean, forests, all that, and I don't want to lose anything in Quincy pertaining to open space currently. Okay.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. First, and most importantly, I want to apologize on behalf of Mayor Koch. He's been to this event in each of his elections, and he was looking forward to being here tonight. There is an event being run by Congressman Lynch and Governor Baker, so protocol dictates that he really has to be there. But as the folks in the committee and QCAN know, his door is always open, his mind is always open, and that's why the mayor hopes to earn your vote in the upcoming election, is to continue the progress we've made. Of course, there's more work to do, but working with QCAN, we have reduced the amount of energy consumption in our buildings between 15 and 20%. We've sponsored, thanks to the help of QCAN, the plastic bag ban. Thanks to QCAN, we've worked to get styrofoam out of our school system. Thanks to QCAN, we've hired the city's first sustainability manager. And thanks to the help of QCAN, we're going to make a net zero test on the new Quincy Public Safety Headquarters. There will be a test on that. All of our new buildings are LEED certified, every single one of them. Our energy efficiency, we're making real progress. We certainly have more work to do, but I think by working together, we can get there.
Thank you. Next question first to Chris. Does the mayor accept the findings of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change?
He does.
So as summarized for the at-large city council candidates, the findings of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, sometimes called IPCC, that the Earth is warming, it's caused by human activity, we need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and we're running out of time. Do you accept those findings?
Yes, but I think I'm not a scientist. Like I said, I do love the environment, but stepping back to what's going on in Quincy alone is the 300 trees that were cut down on the streets of Quincy to put in sidewalks, and some sidewalks were put in asphalt. I mean, there's things like in a small, you know, minor, everyday thing we can work on to fight global warming in a small bit every day. So.
Okay, next question, we'll start with you. So Boston Mayor Marty Walsh is a co-chair of the group Climate Mayors. It's a group of more than 400 mayors who have committed to fighting climate change and to working to meet the national targets of the Paris Climate Agreement, from which the Trump administration withdrew. Should the mayor of Quincy join this group?
Absolutely. Yep.
So slightly different question to you, Chris. Why has Mayor Koch not signed on to this group already?
We can certainly take a look at that. The baseline objectives of the group, as I read them, are something the mayor does support, working toward those goals together with the city of Boston and some of these other places. The city of Quincy is actually embarking on a regional plan to protect the coastline through a potential harbor barrier. Now, that's an adaptation measure as opposed to a climate change protection measure, but that's just as vital as we go forward in the next several years. But we'll certainly take a look at that.
Okay, next question will go first to Chris. So, in the last 5 or 6 years, the city has taken important steps in fighting climate change, installing LED streetlights, putting solar panels on the roofs of schools, recommissioning building systems to make them more efficient, as you just pointed out. We're also in the middle of a process that will substantially increase the percentage of green electricity used by most Quincy residents. It's also called green municipal aggregation for the audience. But the world and cities acting locally will need to do a lot more to rein in global warming. What steps should Quincy be taking next? Asking you to name 2 or 3 steps.
First and foremost, obviously, we need to make our buildings more energy efficient than they already are. We need to continue to build on the progress we've made. Electric cars are part of the solution. Plastics are part of the solution. Buying green energy, buying our electricity from green sources is part of the solution. Adaptation is part of the solution. Protecting our natural environment as it exists today is part of the solution. This year, we've hired the first environmental scientist on behalf of the City of Quincy in a new Department of Natural Resources. The sole purpose of that position is to protect our coastal wetlands and our freshwater storm flows. Those are the kinds of things we need to be doing as a city together to move forward and address these issues. We can get there. It's not going to happen overnight, and I know the progress can be slow, and I know these things, there's a feeling that these things have to happen tomorrow, but the progress we've made in just the last few years has been substantial, and we're going to continue going in that direction.
I agree with Chris. No, I think you've been a wonderful group to help the administration move along on a lot of good issues. I'm just concerned in the future. I want to, like I said, protect everything that we have and not lose anything. So that's it.
Okay, follow-up question. What would you do to make sure the city takes the necessary steps, the steps that you support for reining in global warming, and let's discuss.
I will meet with you and meet with the city council. The city council seems to have quite a good grasp on the issues, and just do what we have to do.
Again, we would continue the productive relationship with QCAN, continue to meet on a regular basis, continue the progress that we've made. Look, again, when it comes to electric cars, that's one specific thing that come up tonight, that there's a feeling that we're not moving fast enough. The mayor doesn't think we're moving fast enough. But by the same time, there's a process here. We're not going to do half measures. We're not going to buy one electric car with one charging station. When we change out our vehicle fleet, our passenger vehicle fleet to start, that's going to be our focus. We're looking at that right now. How many charging stations do we need at DPW to maintain a passenger vehicle fleet, a full passenger vehicle fleet? How many charging stations do we need in other parts of the city? We're starting that process now. The new parking garage at Hancock Lot will have an electric charging stations. There is a charging station that's available right now at the new Southwest Middle School. We're getting there. We're going to get there. Our police cruisers are going to be updated in the next year, and those are going to, the police chief has been directed by the mayor to look at the hybrid model that's going to be out next year. There's going to be a little bit of a difference there. We're not going to do all hybrid all at once, but we're going to let the police department go forward and test to see if these vehicles are providing the service that they need. But we're going to keep moving in that direction. Thank
you. Well, I can cross one of my other questions off of the list about the hybrid vehicles for police. So that's great to hear. Okay. We'll move to, again, this question will be first to Chris. Green municipal aggregation would provide the city's ratepayers with greener electricity at a similar cost to what we're paying now. The City Council authorized the mayor to start the aggregation process in the spring of 2018, but there's still no aggregation a year and a half later. Why is it taking so long, and when will Quincy ratepayers start getting greener power?
Sure, that process is underway right now. The city has hired the consultant. They've developed a plan to put forward before the City Council. We expect that plan to be presented to the City Council before the end of this calendar year. And then the Council will deliberate. There'll be a lot of back and forth relative to the amount of green energy that will be included in our program, the options people will have, and going forward from there. So we expect a robust discussion to begin before the end of this year. But again, and this gets back to the electric cars question, we're not going to do anything that is a half measure. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it correctly. We're going to do it in a way that the community is involved, that the community is engaged, that they have an opportunity to ask questions, they have an opportunity to get the information, that they're fully educated. This aggregation project is going to be a tremendous outreach effort. You're going to change the way people are paying for their electricity bills. We have an obligation to make sure everybody is fully informed and fully vested in it before we move forward.
Yeah, Brenda, so why do you think it's taking so long for the city to move forward with green municipal aggregation? Okay. That's about the city process. Okay. All right, so moving on to the waste question. Brenda, what do you think the city should do to improve recycling rates and handle solid waste, including food waste, in a more climate-friendly way? What should the city be doing, and when? Sorry, with the mic. Yeah.
I think possibly that the products that we're using aren't recyclable, because I fill about a 3/4 trash barrel of recycle to the 1 barrel of trash. I don't know, it seems like we're stuck at 15% for a couple of years. I'm not sure why.
Thank you. I want to go back, almost 12 years now when we started in Quincy single stream recycling. That at the time was an innovative solution. Not a lot of places were doing it at that time, which allowed people to recycle more. Basically, we stopped giving out those little bins, and we told folks to go get a bigger trash barrel, and we'll give you the sticker, and you can recycle using a much larger bin. Of course, the world has totally changed over the course of that time. So what can we be doing? We've just secured a grant from the Department of Environmental Protection to increase our outreach and education and enforcement to some degree. So what we're going to be doing is going around neighborhood to neighborhood and talking to residents, talking about contamination in the recycling, and folks will actually look in recycle bins and see what's contaminated, what's not, and we can leave, you call it an oops ticket. You leave a ticket on the recycling and say, we can't take this, or probably not the first time. You probably still take it and leave the oops ticket the first time. The second time, you don't take the recycling and you leave the informational flyer. That's one piece. The other piece is, and you mentioned composting, the mayor was happy to form the composting task force together with QCAN on the recommendation of the city council. We're looking forward to the recommendations from that group and what the next steps might be.
Thank you. Okay. Regarding construction, we've touched on the net zero that came up earlier. We've touched on that a bit. Would you support a net zero building standard for new municipal buildings, and what could be done to increase energy efficiency and use of renewables for private commercial and residential buildings? What kinds of building standards should be mandated or encouraged, and how would you do that? Sorry, this question, where were we? I'm jumping around. Okay, go ahead, Brenda.
I do support net zero for the new school in Squantum, if it does happen, and also the public safety headquarters. I'm kind of at a loss about more residential commercial development. I'm kind of stuck on the Hospital Hill situation and how many residents are going to be in a neighborhood. So I just would like to see the residential commercial slow down in general. So that's it.
Thank you. I'll start with the commercial building code side. Most of you know we adopted the stretch code many years ago, again working with QCAN, and based upon your recommendation, we adopted that. That increased the efficiency of private building. Today, our building department, understanding that the stretch code is now many years old, more than a decade, we're working with our building department to do a full review to see what other steps we can take relative to the building code. We're also working with having our department heads through Shelley Dean, our sustainability manager, that person that we hired to handle these issues, working with our department heads in the International Energy Conservation Code, which is coming up for a vote, which the city of Quincy has votes for. And that code is very, very tight, and that's one of the most energy efficient codes that we could adopt. And if that vote comes, it becomes part of the Massachusetts State Building Code, and then Quincy becomes part of that code. So that's one angle that Shelley's working on, and we're also having our Inspectional Services Department reviewing its material and reviewing the code for what other steps we can be taken to further tighten up the stretch code.
Okay. Thank you. We'll switch from the reducing emissions part of things to adaptation. So in regard to climate preparedness, I guess beginning with Chris, is our city adequately prepared for climate change now and in the future? Does the city have good plans, and do you believe they're communicated well?
Yes, we just adopted what's called the 5-year hazard mitigation plan. And for the first time, that plan, which is a requirement of the federal government, it's basically a capital plan for all the infrastructure the city needs to respond to any sort of natural disaster. In this 5-year plan that was most recently updated with a lot of work from a lot of people, is heavily focused on climate adaptation, seawalls, drainage, saltwater marshes, freshwater brooks and streams, the protection of those assets, and how we maintain our coastline, how we protect it going forward over the next 10 to 15 years. There's literally tens of millions of dollars of capital outlay outlined in this plan. I would encourage folks to read it. There was a very rigorous community outreach process with that plan. It is directed squarely at what we're going to be facing in the next 10, 15, 30 years. What we faced last year, and I see the Carters out in the audience, what we faced last year in March of 2018 was truly one of our proudest moments as an administration. I know it was one of the mayors. It was a terrible thing. But the response of this community, everyone involved, from city departments to the neighborhood, to the police, to the fire, to the people that came in afterwards to provide assistance, that is the type of thing that makes this community very, very strong. And that's why I think going forward, we have the capability to handle these issues in a long-term basis.
I live on a hill, so I don't have any flooding issues like a lot of you do, and I didn't have to evacuate anywhere, but I do have faith in the city. I think we have a wonderful city, National Guard, police, fire, and Chris, you're doing a great job.
Okay, well, we actually surprisingly have a little bit of extra time, so if there are any final words, final things that you wish I had asked you, you each have a minute to throw that in, and then we'll close. Sorry, beginning with.
Thank you for your time. I know I'm not as keen on a lot of these issues as you are. I do care about the environment and the city. I'm running for mayor, first time running for elected office. Like I said, I love the city, drive around. You're not going to like this, I drive a Suburban, so I apologize in advance. But you might see me drive down your neighborhood or your street. I'm interested in the bog in Montclair. It's all fenced around, and that's a very interesting scientific piece of property. All the coast areas, and again, overcrowding in your neighborhood. You wouldn't like it if it happened to you. The compressor in Weymouth, I've been going to meetings with that for months, or years. So there's just so many issues going on in the city. I'm always available to answer any questions, so I can leave my phone number or talk to you after this when the cameras are off. Okay, thank you. That's a tough one. I'm going to meet with the Squantum residents next week.
Okay, I would like to, could we, any other questions, I encourage people to try and catch our candidates after we close. Yeah, thank you.
One thing that we didn't touch on too heavily were trees. It did come up that the perception that all these trees were taken down in the square and to make concrete sidewalks and all of that. There's a net increase in the number of trees in the downtown since this project out here has started. There are more trees there today than there have been in a very, very long time. This year, the mayor is planting 300 trees. We did a couple hundred last year. This is the most aggressive tree planting program the city's ever gone through. And we didn't really get to it too deeply because the climate change is a little bit different, but the mayor has more than 30 years of experience with the city, and there really has not been a more passionate steward of our open spaces, our green spaces, our parks, our wetlands than this mayor. From his time going back to working with Jim Sheets, to being the park director for 12 years, to being the mayor for the last 12 years, the city, its parks, its open spaces, and its urban forest is doing much, much better today than it was a long time ago, and that's something that we're very proud of, and I'm proud to work on his behalf. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you to QCAN for the ongoing partnership, for the collaboration, for the questions that you guys always ask us on a regular basis, and we truly just hope to continue that work as we go forward, so thank you.
All right. Thank you again.